It's peanuts.
Order at 6:35. And Stan, you're appointed a voting member for the meeting.
All right.
Thank you. And the next up on the agenda is the continuation of the public hearing for 599 Route 169 for upgrading and widening and expansion of parking lot, removal of small well house shed, concrete apron in front of existing barn, pedestrian walkway, accessible ramp, sign, removal of plantings and trees, regrading, slab and enclosure for dumpster, and landscape plantings. And I'm going to review the rules for the public hearing. Having called it to order and read the notice, then one person, we'd like for these purposes, one person to speak at a time. If you're not speaking, it's helpful if you're muted. Remember that this session, this Zoom meeting is going to be recorded. And if you would state, which I didn't do, your name and your address initially, so that we have that for the record, and then thereafter, whenever you do speak, just state your name. We have with us tonight as members of the commission, I'm Gail Usher, I'm chair. Stan Swanson is a member, and Tim Monahan also are members. And that's sufficient for our deliberations today. Then what will happen next is the applicant will provide detailed description with plans and any updates. The commissioners will then ask questions. Then we will call for supporting comments. And then we have the opportunity to then ask questions. We will call for comments in opposition, and we'll also note any letters that we've received. And then we'll have an opportunity to ask questions of those individuals. Then the applicant can speak. And also there'll be a chance for any opposition comments to be voiced again. And then we will make a determination of whether or not it is time for us to close the public hearing. And at that point, once we close the public hearing, then there will be no more public comment or applicant comments, but then the commissioners themselves will deliberate on the application and the information that they've received. All right. Refer to that. So I, first of all, want to thank Jamie and Jason for their continued work and work with us as we go through this application. And I note that there have been updated plans. You've submitted updated plans in response to a lot of what we covered at the last public hearing. And also in response to a site visit that was held the week after the public hearing. I want to remind everybody that our goal, overall, the goal of the commission is that there be minimal intrusion and minimal impact on the character defining features of the district. That's the maximum with which we do our deliberations, so that we can achieve that goal. That being said, we really appreciate the way the residents within the district work hard to make sure that we do keep the character defining features of the district intact as much as possible. So at this point, who will speak? Who's going to do the initial presentation? John, will that be you or Pete?
For the record, Madam Chair, this is John Guskowski, a planner with CHA Companies based in Storrs, Connecticut. I will start the presentation. and we'll look for my colleague Pete Parent, professional engineer, also from CHA companies, to contribute. Obviously, you've noted that the applicants, Jamie and Jason Beausoleil, are with us.
Mhm.
I would just because this is sort of the third time the commission is taking a look at this project, I'd like to focus on the specific changes to the site that we are proposing based on input from the last public hearing and the site visit. If I might, the easiest way might be to share my screen if I'd be allowed to do so, and I can show the site plan.
Please do.
So can members see my screen with the site plan on it?
Yes, I can. Stan and Tim, can you see it?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
So I'll start off, and I would ask Pete and the Beausoleils to jump in if I am neglecting anything. So the goal, obviously, as you stated, Madam Chairman, is to limit disturbance or impact on the
Let's see.
character defining features of the district of this site, as well as to do as little conduct as little irreversible change to the site as possible per the Secretary of the Interior's guidance. Some of the specific changes that we've made to the site or to the proposed site plan since the last meeting were to narrow the driveway, the proposed driveway, from 24 to 20 feet for the majority of it, reduce the number of parking spaces, which will allow us to push again, this is gravel parking, not asphalt parking, push it farther back into the site to the northwest of the site. We are reducing parking numbers, which will allow us to retain the existing, although not functional, well house. We are and we are reducing the amount of driveway that wraps around to the northwest portion of the site, leading in front of the barn. We have removed the dumpster upon reconsideration of the zoning regulations that don't actually require a dumpster for a commercial site, and consultation with the Beausoleils that they do not generate enough trash that would warrant the need for a dumpster, and therefore that also allows us to reduce or eliminate the need for a dumpster pad enclosure and screening. We have added a wooden gate up just beyond the barn, which will prevent cars or vehicles from proceeding down the driveway to the Route 169 driveway, which has been determined to be unsafe. So there will be a gate in place. The reduction in the size of the driveway and parking area has also allowed us to reduce the size of the rain gardens because the stormwater runoff volume will be decreased. We have added some additional landscape treatments and a hedgerow between the subject property, 599 Route 169, and the church adjacent to the northeast. Following the site visit, we opted not to propose a different entrance than we had initially proposed, which will still wrap around we'll still have a ramp to the easterly side of the building and wrap around to the existing porch. What we have done on the site plan, I am switching the page to page 3 of the site plan pack. Hopefully people can see this. We have detailed the ramp, and again, we are using pressure treated posts, a wooden support for the railing, not wishing to make this a structurally integral to the building, and so this could be easily removed should the use change and we no longer need to have a handicap accessible ramp. But the rails and spindles will in their design and materials will match the existing porch. So we wanted to point out the detail of that. But the rest of the project is more or less as presented at the last couple of meetings. And I'll ask Pete to jump in if I have missed any of the substantive changes.
Pete Parent with CHA. No, John, I think you covered everything that we've updated. I'm happy to answer any questions if the commission has them.
Now, one thing this is Gail Usher, Chair. One thing I noted was it appears that when I compared the plans, it appears that the walkway has been altered as well. You've reduced the amount of walkway, and now the walkway up to the ramp now leads from the area of handicapped accessible parking, and that you've got a perimeter walkway for the west parking spaces that now connects to that.
Is that an existing concrete? Do you mean the concrete walk off of the back of the building?
No, from the ramp, there's the concrete walkway that goes from the base of the ramp, all right, and goes along heading east. Yes, east on the property, and then swings now to the north to the handicapped accessible parking.
Yep.
And while that was there was also, because in the previous iteration of parking, there had been an additional sidewalk that cut across and was connecting to that. So it appears that you've also reduced the amount of walkway. Is that correct?
The length of that gravel walkway has been reduced, but it still does exist there along that curved section of parking.
Right, that's just what I mean. It has been reduced, right?
Yes.
Could you, for those who can't necessarily see the details of the parking area, could you just define how many parking spaces you now have in the plan?
Sure. So,
Total of
go ahead,
15
Pete.
spaces. Yeah, it's a total of 15 spaces now.
And so that's 2 in the separate handicapped parking area, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And then the parking lot is divided into basically 2 sections. I'll say a west and an east section. And you've got 8 in a J-shaped curve that are on the west side of this parking area, and you've got 5 that are on the church side of this parking area, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And if I might, Madam Chairman, I would just point out, you referred to the walkway between the parking lot and the building as concrete. It is not intended to be concrete. It will be compliant with ADA, but it will be either crushed gravel or asphalt.
Oh, excellent. All right. Yeah, that's noted on the plans. You're right. Do you have an approximate distance from the road, from Child Hill Road to the beginning of the parking area? I didn't see that.
I'll let the engineer scale that one out.
So from the closest point of the gravel parking lot to Childs Hill Road, it's about 85 feet.
Right. All right. Thank you. And the width now of the entrance, the driveway's entrance?
So the driveway itself is 20 feet wide, and then we have a 10-foot radius on either end. So at its maximum width, it would be 40 feet.
And that also means a reduction.
Correct.
All right. So first of all, I'm going to turn it over to commission member questions here in a moment, but I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the effort that everybody, that you are all putting into to really trying to meet our concerns, to respond to our concerns, these extra plantings are very helpful in terms of screening the parking, and the relocation of the parking lot back farther onto the site is also helpful for maintaining the view shed there. So we appreciate the efforts that you're putting into this. Stan and Tim, do you have questions?
This is Stan here. I don't have any questions. I took some time this week on the computer to review these plans, so I'm pretty familiar with the changes that have been made.
Tim?
Tim, you're still muted.
It's possible he doesn't have any comments, any questions at the moment. I have some additional questions, and that I read in reading the plans. You are going to, it appears, and I may have not read them correctly, but it looks, the gate, I'll go back to the gate on the driveway that exits onto Route 169. The gate is up by the barn, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
It's,
So that will,
I'm circling it with my cursor on the screen right now.
right. So that will prevent exiting. And I noted that the directions also say that you're going to resod the area, the driveway, it's reseed or resod the driveway itself so that it's grassy rather than looking like the rest of that driveway, rather than looking like a driveway, and that you're also going to post two do not enter signs. And yeah,
That's correct. Those are detailed here, and as I'm circling, the note,
Yep.
the do not enter signs will be here, and the note for the loaming and reseeding is here.
right. And so it's just, and hopefully, it doesn't come under our, isn't under our authority, but hopefully those two signs will be sufficient to keep people from entering that driveway. Because as been noted before, the traffic on that curve going south on 169 can be dangerous, and it is a bit of a blind curve for the southbound traffic. So just a word of, that's it. It occurred to me as I was looking at the site the other day that could be an area that might even need might at some point need a more physical barrier, at which point just come back before us so that we can, approve that as well. I noted on the plans that you also show repairs taking place to the porch.
Pete, do you want to?
Yeah, that's correct. As we discussed at the site visit, there's an existing step from the porch into the house, which obviously can't exist for handicap accessibility. So similar to what we're doing with the ramp itself, we'll be constructing a wood frame with composite decking on the top to reach that level, but not physically alter the existing structure.
So this is something that will, like a platform, sit on top of the existing porch? And
correct. It'll sit on that existing stonework to bring the level up to the doorway.
Okay. And so and match the top of the ramp to the top of the doorway.
Correct.
Right. Okay. is now
This is
looking,
Stan Gale. Can I cut
Yes.
in here for a minute?
please.
Will that ramp need to have its own handrail system then?
Given the width of the porch, it won't require a new handrail. The existing handrail would be acceptable, to my knowledge.
Okay. But there's an opening in the handrails directly in front of the door, correct? So some of that ramp would have a clear view from the street, in line with the steps going up to the porch.
Yes, there would be a small section that would be exposed where the steps are.
So there wouldn't be any handrail at that point, right? So how would you deal with that?
That's similar to a typical situation where you have a handicap ramp and a set of stairs. There are exceptions made for where you have those interactions that you don't need a continuous rail,
Okay.
especially when you have the width here that we do.
All right.
And
Thank you.
This is Gail again. So that's sufficient. So having that opening at the stairs is sufficient. Let's see, will not be a danger, present a danger should there be a wheelchair that's coming up the ramp, making the turn, and then needing to make the turn again into the house?
Correct. You need a 5-foot radius of maneuverability area for a wheelchair, and that existing porch is about 6 feet wide.
Is there still going to be, going back to the driveway, previous plans had shown one tree being removed, and I believe the current plans do show that, but I just want to confirm that one tree will be coming out.
Correct. That same tree still needs to be removed.
Good. And then my next question has to do with the fire marshal. Has the fire marshal been in to provide you with information yet?
Yeah, I'll start the answer and then Jason can jump in. But yeah, the fire marshal has been consulted. We may need to do some upgrading of some of the interior materials if we're going to have a mixed use. We're going to have a residential apartment upstairs and retail downstairs. But so that is something that we may choose to do at a later date and just proceed with the retail use at first, and then work towards adding the apartment above later. Because so there's some complications that we need to talk further with the fire marshal about. But those would be interior changes.
So what was his determination about the use as a retail space?
I think he doesn't have any issues with that. There's some fire code things that are involved with the mixing of residential and non-residential, but I don't believe there was any issue with the retail space. But Jason, I'll let you clarify.
Hello, Jason Bosley. I did talk to the fire marshal. We're meeting Monday at 9 a.m. And we decided not to do the mixed use as of now, just because he had to do the same thing he had to do the Woodstock Academy, and said, go to the state. It's be a lot quicker for now just to do commercial, especially with your fire alarm intact and everything, all the kids that were in there. So should be no problems. He said it'd be pretty quick. I'm going to meet with him. And then I'll have to, draw something up and graph paper where, like I did in Coventry or Woodstock location, and just show where the furniture is going to go. Of course, it changes every day because we sell so much products, but just a somewhat of a graph paper where it displays the furniture and people have room to walk, and everything has to be at a certain distance. But that was the main concern. So I'm meeting with him Monday. So,
All right. Thank you.
well,
Do we have, Tim, did you have any questions?
The only one is, can that driveway be reduced in size even further? Is that the minimum size?
Do you mean width?
Can you hear me?
Width,
Yeah. Can that go down to 18 feet or is 20 the minimum?
At 18 feet, you really start to run into some issues of particularly two trucks that might have, larger mirrors running into each other. It probably technically could be done, but it's not real advisable for a commercial access to a site.
Okay.
and this is Gail again. Well, realistically, you don't need to have two trucks passing each other.
That's unlikely to be a common occurrence, but when you design a commercial driveway, there are some things you have to consider.
Consider, yes, but we're also designing a commercial driveway in a historic district, so there
Right.
are also other issues that need to be considered as well.
That's absolutely correct. That's why we reduced it from 24, which is recommended, to the 20.
Right. Tim, do you have any other questions right now for the applicant?
You want to do it?
We can barely, you're a little garbled, Tim.
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. All right. At this time, if there are any supporting comments or documents to be presented, those individuals can speak up. Right. And then if there are any opposing comments, I will say that I've received so far, I have received 2 letters that were in, and they've been posted, that were in opposition to the project and also brought up questions concerning the project. And I'll open it up for public comment. Let's see, I'm trying to see if I can see if somebody is, let me look and see if I can see if somebody's raising their hand. So you should have a raise hand function under participants at the bottoms of your screen. And if you would like to speak, raise your hand. If I somehow can't see it, then if you want to go ahead and just physically raise your hand, then I'll call on you. Please identify yourself when you speak. If some of you are blacked out, so if I cannot see you raising your hand, then just go ahead and barge right in and let me know that you want to say something.
This is Bill Rowinski. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
Bill. Yes, I can.
Yes, I'm representing the Evangelical Covenant Church next door. And to summarize our letter, we are against the changes because we have significant concerns about parking. If there's overflow parking on Child Hill Road, it really makes a very dangerous situation at the intersection of 169 and Child Hill Road and Old Hall Road, and there's several other roads there. And people can't turn onto Child Hill Road, then they get stuck in the middle of the intersection there also. We have concerns of any overflow parking would be needed, that they might be inclined to use some of the church's property. You might not be totally against that, except if they're using parking in inappropriate places, as in next to the driveway or on the grass. There's the fire lane for that driveway that enters the property. So we wouldn't want to have that obstructed in any way. It looks like the latest plans show the property, the parking area pushed back from the property boundary, and we appreciate that. And also appreciate the hedge plantings that are planned. The only other comment is, or several other comments, the activity at the church has been very quiet, but in normal times, there's a lot of activity there, all day long. There's children meeting tonight there, doing activities outside. During the morning, we might have memorial services or a funeral occasionally. There are groups that meet during the morning and during the afternoon. They're usually smaller groups. Sometimes the academy also uses our church facility for some of their standardized testing. So they kind of have that sequestered basement area that they use, and they bring in tables and 50, 100 kids to do their standardized tests. So that's the basics of our objections. And I'm hoping that the way that the barn looks right now is not an indication of the way things will be, because it's very easy for someone to go wandering in there. And there's been a ladder that's been hanging up there to the second floor with a broken rung on it. That's been there for a long time. It's a significant safety hazard. I have another few questions. At the last planning and zoning meeting, I caught a vague comment that I believe said something about retail expansion into the barn. Jamie and Jason, could you comment about that?
All right.
I would, if I might jump in, Madam Chairman.
Mhm.
I would suggest that that's I would note that the public hearing for
That's-
planning and zoning is still open, and I would suggest that Mr. Rowinski direct
John,
his comments there.
Thank you, John. I'm going to take care of those bookkeeping aspects of the meeting. Go ahead, Bill, if you wanted to go through any of the questions and comments you had, and then we'll address which ones are appropriate for the Historic District Commission.
Well, the next is 3 questions. And does Jamie and Jason get deliveries by tractor trailers at their current locations? Are they expecting to get delivery by tractor trailer at this location, the new location? And what are the plan for managing the tractor trailers?
Okay. Go. Yeah, I'm just going to go. Why don't you just go through your questions, and we'll be able to determine if any of those are relevant to the historic district discussion.
Okay, that's it for right now.
All right. So, thank you very much, Bill. Anything to do with parking, traffic on Child Hill Road, and retail, any plans for expansion, as well as the tractor trailer deliveries and their management. Those are all issues to be addressed at the planning and zoning meeting, which I believe is scheduled for tomorrow evening.
Yes.
So, all right, so those are specific. What we deal with here with the historic district is just impact to the landscape, the view, the buildings themselves. I will say just one comment about your concern about blocking the fire lane is that you should make sure, this is just a non-official comment, but just make sure that your fire lane is adequately marked so that it is apparent that there is no parking here and that it's a fire lane. Really none of the concerns that you expressed at the moment are things that we can address here that they all really are best suited for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, I understand.
Madam Chairman, if I might.
Yep. Yes, John.
So John, again, for the record, John Guskowski, I would just note that the public hearing, which had been scheduled for tomorrow night for planning and zoning, has been postponed to either October 1st or October 15th, depending on the progress with the other public hearing, which is a gas station proposal that's before planning and zoning. But in any event, it will not be taking place tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much, John. And so that means also, Bill and anybody else, that there is then plenty of time to also get letters in writing into planning and zoning regarding the application for this location, so that those can be part of the record and therefore distributed to all the members of Planning and Zoning Commission, so that they can read your comments ahead of time should time be tight during the actual meeting, that they will have access to your comments.
Okay. The current site plan, is that available anywhere yet?
It is. The site plan that John displayed and that we've been talking about is on the town website under Historic District Commission. And on that particular page, on the left-hand side, there's a blue box that says Documents for Zoom Meetings. And when you click on that, then in the middle of the page, it will open a list of the different Zoom meetings will open up, and then click there, and that will take you to the documents, these plans, as well as 2 or 3 other documents.
Document.
Madam Chair, if I might, I posted the link directly into the group chat for this meeting.
Okay, thank you, John.
There was one thing, Gail, if I could add.
Yes, Jamie. I mean, yes, Jason, sorry.
So I know, just to put the gentleman at ease, there will be no tractor trailers pulling in. Absolutely not. So I want to let him know that. And our hours of operation are 11 to 5, Thursday through Saturday, 11 to 4 on Sunday. So I know we had a concern about morning groups, and so just to let you know that much.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional questions or comments from members of the public? I received a communication that asked about the planning and zoning application, which does not currently list that the historic district approval is a requirement. That should be noted. I think I'm back at the first public hearing we had for this. I noted that the historic district had not been put as one of those commissions for which the application required approval. So it is approval from us is a qualification for approval by planning and zoning. They interlock together. And by the same token, if planning and zoning does not give permission for the retail space for retail use, then any approvals that we give would not be implemented. Our approvals are contingent upon the retail space being approved by retail use being approved by planning and zoning. All right. Are there any additional comments or questions? Jean McClellan.
I thought I raised my hand on the screen, but I guess it didn't come through.
It doesn't, it's not, they're not showing up for whatever reason. I can't see them.
So the old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way works.
I'm pleased to see that some progress has been made in this application. And with the 169 entrance, the dumpster removal, and so forth. I know that there hasn't been a change, and I would be curious, and that the well house will be preserved. Those are all, there's some positive things that have taken place. ramping is clearly still planned to attach to the front porch of the house in the prominent corner. And I would, the site visit, I don't know if there's a summary of that as a meeting of the historic district, or if there can be a verbal report about what the thinking might be that would keep the ramping at the front of the house.
So that was not a formal meeting. It did not rise to the number to be a formal meeting by the commission. However, a summary was that both the rear entrances were examined, and they were examined inside as well. And it really was determined that neither one of them, while from the exterior, they could potentially both have been suitable. Once you got into the house itself, it became obvious that it was not going to be, that there was not the sufficient space that was needed to be able to accommodate wheelchairs, to meet the ADA requirements for accessibility. So it defaulted to the only option then was the southwest corner. And one of the things to note is that the applicant has not only has altered the configuration of the ramp, so it's no longer concrete, and the spindles, it will be in accord with the porch, but also the numbers of plantings that are going to serve as screenings have been increased as well. I think that one of the things that is good is that ramp is could be in the future a removable feature of the space. It is not, by no longer being concrete, that makes it a much more ephemeral piece, if one would, something that down the road, a different use of the property, that ramp can be removed easily, and will not impact the structure.
Okay. Sticking with that ramp area, I see a picture in the site plan of what it might look like from the side, and clearly there's an open space underneath. Will the plantings that go next to that and around it be ones that stay green all year, and will they be, to start, of a scale that is going to in fact hide that blank space underneath the ramp?
Let's see, John or Pete, can you speak to that?
I'll have to open up the site plan for the details of the planting, if you hold on a moment. Pete, I don't know if you have that handy.
Yeah, so we had specified a few different species that would be acceptable in that area, or any other Connecticut native species as selected by the owner. Several of them would be evergreen, several of them that would not be evergreen. So certainly, I think we can make the recommendation to Jamie and Jason that they include some evergreen plantings in that area, especially where the ramp is at its highest point, would have that larger open area.
I think the two factors I would think would be important would be that there be, that they be of sufficient scale as well as evergreen. If things are going to go through in this area. The other thing about the entrance and the notion of raising the level of the porch, which I appreciate in terms of ramping and so forth. I'm involved in a project with ramping myself these days, but so I appreciate the need for this. I don't see anything that gives me a sense of what the porch is going to look like from the front of the house if the actual level of the porch floor is raised, I don't know how much. Any comments on that, please?
So it's about a 7.5 inch or 8 inch step from the existing porch to the sill of the building. So the intent would be to, basically raise that porch up that distance, and you would have what would appear from the street as, a sill board above the porch. It would just be extended out to 6 feet closer to than it is now. You're going to have the same appearance in elevation. You're going to have between the top of the existing step and the doorway, you're going to have that 7 to 8 inches. It'll just be, the board will be 6.5 feet closer to you now.
I'm having difficulty still picturing it and picturing the interface then with the front walkway. It would be very helpful to see that in a rendering or an elevation or something.
Okay.
Gene, if I could add to your response, we're gonna hide that wheelchair ramp as best as possible.
I can't hear.
Jason, you're breaking up.
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna hide that wheelchair ramp as best as possible. I don't want to see it either, especially from the roadside. So we're gonna put all perennials in there. So I just wanted to put that in. That's we don't want to see it either. So that's gonna be a big factor when we do all the vegetation. We get a professional landscaper in there, which you've already talked to. So that will be all done and maintained weekly. So just want to add that.
Jason, there must be something, your microphone doesn't pick you up when you're sitting back.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay. I just wanted to add that the wheelchair ramp will be hidden as best as possible. Jamie and I, we don't want to see it either.
It's
So,
okay.
no.
If I might, Madam Chair, I did hear what Jamie or what Jason had to say.
Okay, go ahead.
So they expressed very much interest in disguising the ADA ramp as much as possible, because it's not a feature that they particularly want to have to have displayed either. It's in their interest to hide it and make the house appear as historic as when they bought it. And it's very much in their interest to maintain the character of the house and of the neighborhood.
And perhaps that'd be something that, if approved, then its plantings would be in consultation with the commission to steer you in the direction of appropriate plantings.
Right, and Jason noted that he's already working with a landscape architect that's sensitive to these issues.
And if I still have the platform.
Yes, you do.
I would also note my concern to the commission that plantings, we've seen one over time, one instance in which plantings were not maintained, and that there be a guarantee of maintenance over time. And that would include if there are, say, arborvitae that are 6 to 8 feet, that there be a range of height for them. I know from my own sad experience that arborvitae can get very big, and I would think that would not be something that would be attractive and in keeping with the historic district. I think it would detract from the maples that are along that property line with the church. It would also reduce the sunlight to those maple trees if they were to be increased in their scale. So I think careful consideration to that aspect would be something I would encourage if this is to go ahead. I hear the walkway has been shifted from concrete to either crushed gravel or asphalt. And I still think that I don't know what crushed gravel looks like. I know what cinder dust looks like, which is used in some historic properties. Crushed gravel sounds like a coarser treatment to me, and I don't know that and I certainly think the asphalt would not be in keeping with a Georgian house. So I would like that to be considered. One element I especially appreciate not having to contend with as a neighbor is your dumpster. I think I'm glad that Jamie and Jason have seen that that's not a necessity for them, and that's one thing I certainly do appreciate. The parking has been reduced. It still feels like a lot of parking to me. And I note that the church and David Stone, who have written letters for this meeting, have noted that they would suggest that this permit be, this certificate of appropriateness for this work be denied as the I would like to think there could be some good accommodation could be made, although it seems that at every meeting we get a little bit more. And I note that planning and zoning, if they were to meet tomorrow night, had a different set of plans, I think, from the set of plans that are before this meeting tonight. And I'm assuming that by the time planning and zoning meets, in fact, in October, they will have the same set of plans to work from. I'm trying to think, the discussion of the width of the driveway, when will two vehicles be needed? Two big trucks passing in the daylight? I just don't see that happening. If they were big trucks, I think one could wait a minute on Child Hill Road or something, or go around the block. I don't know, but that just seems like a small reason for a big increase in driveway width. I also have a comment. I was delighted to see that the front entrance, for safety reasons, is no longer going to be even an issue. But I do note on the plan that the curb cut into the driveway will remain. And I think that could be a real hazard, because people might turn in, realize they couldn't go any farther, and try to back out onto that very dangerous curve. And my safety concern, in fact, increases if that curb cut is kept, instead of just having the whole thing become grass, and clearly not something that anyone can enter. I'm wondering if any of that parking could still, instead of being, and I know efforts have been made to reduce it to some degree and to move it back from the road. And I note the sort of curve in the driveway coming in, which is a little more graceful. Is there any way that it could be cut back still further, and because, and I don't know if you've had reports, there was talk about getting reports that would say how much parking would actually be needed. But if some of that number of spaces could be accommodated simply on grass at the, what I call the east side of the barn, the side nearest away from 169, nearer the church. There seems to be some space. There's clearly septic that is in the front of the property, but I've just wondered about that back space as being another way to cut down parking to a further degree. parking remains an issue for people.
Anything else, Jean?
I think that is it. I think I like what Dan Atwood said at the last meeting. He talked about 3 Ps: the prominence of the property, the precedents that might be set, and our concern in the neighborhood and the concern of the Historic District Commission for the protection of the character of the district. And I appreciate the work that everybody has been doing. And Jason and Jamie, that includes you and John Gruskowski and Pete Parent and the commission. Everybody I know has been working on this, and there has been progress.
Thank you, Jean. And I just want to make one comment regarding the setting precedents, that we are ever mindful that we take every property and every application and we deliberate upon its merits and its impact. We also look at the cumulative effect, for example, of asphalt or parking or change in an area, but that our intent is not to have a decision made about one property, one application, influence, or in any way set a precedent for another, in the same way that we don't look at what has already been established in the district and use that as establishing a precedent for making our decisions. That's in the, I guess that's part of the more recent codified ways of being able to approach something, because decisions that might have been made and years ago could be used to carry forward to make decisions now. And we work hard, so everybody needs to be mindful that we work hard now, not to either attempt to set precedent or to use something that exists as precedent. And that helps us to make a really good decision on the application itself and on its impact. Thank you for all your comments, Jean. Any other members of the public wish to speak? And again, I don't seem to be able to see hands, although I can. Oh, that's John's comment. So I don't seem to be able to see hands raised. So if you do in fact wish to speak, unmute yourself at this point for comment, or flap your hand and I will see that you wish to speak and call on you. They don't see anything. All right. Then, Jock.
Could I add a couple of comments?
Yes, you can.
I, of course, always think exactly as my wife Jean thinks. So everything she said is something I agree with. I have a question about trees. My own experience is that it doesn't take much scraping of roots on trees to damage them. So I'm wondering what will be done just in terms of the procedure for putting in the arborvitae next to the church's trees along their driveway, and in terms of the ground around the runoff area to minimize the damage to roots of trees.
John or Pete, would you like to respond to that?
Certainly. So the arborvitae hedgerow that's being installed along the church's property line is actually inside of the existing gravel drive. So that area has previously been disturbed, and the gravel drive itself is 6 to 8 inches lower than the grade that will be there currently. So we're not talking about a significant amount of excavation in order to install that row of hedges. You know, most landscapers are very cognizant of the fact that they can't be disturbing the roots of, you know, main roots of established trees, as you mentioned, because it can cause damage. So I'm confident that the folks that Jason and Jamie have working for them would be aware of that and would not do any damage to those trees while they're installing the others. And the same would be true of the work around the rain garden. You know, certainly some small roots are going to be disturbed and damaged, but any main root would be dug around by hand and preserved.
Following up on that, if any trees sustain any trees sustain fatal damage during the project, will they be replaced?
Jamie and
I
Jason, you may
can't
want to
speak to
answer.
that.
Okay, Pete.
I can't. Jason and Jamie will have to answer that.
Yeah, yes, everything will be maintained. My wife's a green thumb, but we do have a family member that works at Price Greenhouse. She's a horticulturist. She's worked there for 30 years. So everything will be maintained and kept up.
Great. Well, what I was thinking of is in the course of the excavation, since you are going to be working, that the project does excavation around well-established trees, that it is possible, and we know how easy, how sensitive, especially maples are. It's very possible that damage that their root system might get damaged, and that they begin the slow die off that one sometimes sees. And in a year from now, you've got a couple of the trees have died. So I'm wondering if your maintenance plans then would include replacement of those, the attention to those trees and replacement of them.
Yes, worst scenario, if something gets damaged, we will replace to repair. First, try to repair, and you know, the worst case scenario is to replace something. The largest we can do it.
It's
So,
practical, right?
yeah, that's the word I'm looking for.
Could I add one last comment?
Yes, go ahead, John.
I didn't identify myself. I'm Jock McClellan. And I just want to tell Jason and Jamie and John and Pete that I am very, very pleased with the way you have responded to all the concerns of all your future neighbors. And I think the result is a win-win result. I think it'll be better for your neighbors, and I think it'll make better business for you. So I think this tedious, long, difficult, terrible process will turn out to have been good in the long run. So thank you.
Jean?
Thank you very much for the support. You get 10% off when you come in the store.
I realized there were a couple of things I had meant to ask about. The archaeological review is something that will be done.
Once we'd finished with the public comments, I was going to address, so I'm happy to address that now.
Okay.
So I have spoken to, hold on. I've spoken
And I
to,
have a couple of other things too, Gail. Do you want me to go with them
why don't
first?
you go with the other two first, and then we can address the archaeology.
One was a question about trees, and I noted that they would be trimmed to a 16-foot height. What does that mean? Does that mean branches will be removed up to 16 feet? Does it mean that, I don't know what that means.
John
Yes,
or Pete?
Yeah, so Pete with CHA. Yes, so that means to trim any tree branches and limbs that would impede a sight distance to the intersection up to 16 feet tall. That's standard for a roadway. So that's where that number comes from.
And
But-
I was going to say, just to clarify, those are the trees those are the two or three trees that are along Child Hill Road?
Correct.
Okay. I hope it will be done artfully, because that can begin to look pretty ragged. The third thing I wanted to mention, at the last meeting, there was reference, and Jason, I think you went on record saying that there would be no outdoor display of wares. And I think that's important to your neighbors somehow, in the sense of the character of the historic district. I'm wondering if that can be codified if a certificate of appropriateness is issued.
If it's determined that it is appropriate to say that, then it would be, and permit and approval is given, then it would be it can be part of the document.
It's an if thing, but I just want that to be a consideration that's of importance to people around. I know Jamie and Jason have said they want to be good neighbors, and this is something that can help.
Thank you, Jean. Anything else? Jean, do you have any additional questions before I tackle the archaeology?
No, that was it.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So regarding the archaeology, I've spoken with Mike Farina, who is the Preservation Connecticut Circuit Rider, and with Jane Montanaro, who's the Executive Director, as well as Catherine Labadia, who's the Department of Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer, and then Mary Dunn, who is the State Historic Preservation Officer. I've had conversations and emails with all of them regarding what our authority is and what really needs, what does or doesn't need, what should be taken into account. And archaeology is not within our scope. It does sit within the Historic Properties Commission scope if the site has any kind of historic archaeological significance or sensitivity designation. And as of this moment, it does not. That being said, the entire area is seen as being potentially archaeologically sensitive. So so that will be, that is, concern is, and now this is my formal expression of concern, that for any excavations that are done in the area, that I am reinforcing the fact that this is a potentially archaeologically sensitive or significant site, and that going forward, we hope that if your project goes forward, that you will be mindful of this, and you will keep that in mind as contractors execute their work, that it is a potentially sensitive area. And that is formally on the record of the fact that we are aware that it has that potentiality and are asking you to, the applicants and their contractors, to keep that in mind. All right. Next, if no other members of the public have any comments, then commissioners, do you have any questions for those members of the public who have already made comments? Anything you'd like to, Stan or Tim would like to follow up with, whether it's Bill or Jock or Jean? Go ahead, Tim.
Not a direct question to the public, but to the planner. I did think Jean made a good comment about that walkway going to the ramp. That was put off as being either asphalt or, I believe, crushed stone. I think that needs to be designated. You know, which surface is it going to be? to reduce the visual impact, I think it needs to be, something like brick or stone or crushed stone. And it needs to be specific to be approved.
Okay, Tim, you are really, the best word I can use to describe it is verbally. I'm not getting it sort of sounds like you're talking through water. But I think what I'm hearing you say is that we don't have sufficient detail about the walkway, and we would be interested in looking at alternative materials, especially to asphalt. Did I summarize it reasonably?
Right. I think, can you hear me better?
Yes.
They mentioned either asphalt or crushed stone, and I think it needs to be specific which one is going to be approved.
Mm-hmm.
And to reduce the visual impact, I think asphalt should be avoided if possible, and either use brick or stone, like bluestone, or crushed stone if that's possible. But I don't think we can approve it just one or the other. Like, we need to know which surface.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. We cannot approve might be this, might be that. We need the details and the specifications. In the same way, we really do need and even more than just a physical, just a verbal description. It would be helpful if we had a photograph of it will look like this. And I think the same with the driveway, because there is question about what's the kind of gravel, so that if we have, again, the details, the size of the gravel, and then a specific photograph of what would be a similar, it will look like this. That will very much be helpful. Also, the same with more, as we've noted, also more details on what this extra piece on top of the front porch is going to look like. We really need to have that, I think, a drawing of that to be able to fully deliberate on those details. And anything else, Tim or Stan?
Yeah, this is Stan. A couple of questions have come up then. Maybe John can address what materials we're limited to so that a wheelchair can roll on it comfortably. That might narrow down the possibilities for what that walkway could be. And also at the front door, then would it be possible just to add railing across the open section to help hide that ramp up to the front door? So if you could address those two questions, that'd be helpful to me.
So this is Pete Parent with CHA. From an ADA accessibility standpoint, the way the regulation reads is it has to be a hard surface that will maintain a smooth, consistent walkway. So asphalt, concrete, paving bricks, stone dust, those sort of things are typically acceptable.
Okay.
Then as far as the railing across the steps, I would have Jason and Jamie address that. Certainly it can be done, but I don't know from a functionality standpoint or from a visual standpoint if that's something that they would like to consider.
And I would think that any need for that would really depend on visually what that is going to look like once it's built, which is why a rendering of it is very desirable.
Hi, this is Jamie speaking. We wouldn't mind putting the railing straight across the opening of the top of the stairs now because we're not going to use the stairs. Everyone is going to enter the building and exit the building from the handicap ramp.
All right, so that's an option, and I think whether or not that's necessary and whether our decision on whether or not that would even be appropriate would depend on what we're going to see that finished product look like, again, which is where a detailed rendering is important for us.
I did find spindles that are on the house now, on the porch existing now. I found them. So, we're talking to the contractors already. So the wheelchair ramp will consist of the same spindles that are on the porch now.
Just taller.
Just taller. Yeah, so.
Say that last part again.
Just taller.
Yes, just taller. Right,
Yeah.
right. That's excellent. Thank you very much. Dan, anything else?
No. Given the list of possible materials for the walkway, seems pretty wide ranging, so I would say have the applicant pick what they think is best for them, and we can rule on that
Well,
after they make their choice.
or we, during our deliberations, we may narrow in on one or two options. That's sometimes it's more helpful so we keep this continually coming back and coming back and coming back, so that we can narrow their choices down, and then they can pick one of the two or three that will be acceptable for the district. Right. Commission questions. All right. Jamie and Jason, John or Pete, if you have any additional comments to make, now is the time to do them, or respond to anything that you have heard or anything that we've brought up that you haven't had a chance to respond to. Now is the time to do that before we move towards closing the public hearing.
I do have a question about the walkway and the material.
Can you get closer to your mic?
I know that you're concerned about the material of the walkway, and I guess my question is if it verbally can be done so everybody's on the same page. I mean, what material, if you don't want the asphalt, what other material would you think that would be appropriate?
So what we'll do is we'll discuss that next. Okay. This be one of the things in our discussion, and we'll come up with a couple of options for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that'll make it easier for you to move forward with this. Any member of the public in opposition to the application has one last chance to speak? And again, I am not seeing hands for some reason tonight, so for whatever reason. So if you do wish to speak, then raise your hand. Physically raise your hand.
Gail, this is Crystal. I see no hands raised.
Okay, great. Thanks, Crystal. All right, then commission members, I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tim. Is Stan, are you seconding?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. So at this point, we are closing the public hearing. And then what will next be is the three of us will discuss what we've covered tonight and make our determination.
All right.
Just let me get a piece of paper here, Stan. All right, all set. Okay. I'm interested in your thoughts and comments, gentlemen.
I'm pretty happy with the revised plans stipulating keeping number of parking open depending on occupancy ratings by the fire marshal and contingent on a sketch for that front door ramp and a little more specifics on what plantings will hide the lower open section of the handicap ramp. In general, though, I think the ramp as designed with the matching balusters would meet my approval, and I like the driveway with the little curve in it. I would say if we could reduce the parking a little bit more to please the neighbors, and depending on the occupancy of the building, that would be a nice thing to do, but I don't think it's too bad as it's drawn. That pretty much summarizes my feelings on the plan as revised.
All right, so any thoughts on the walkway? Now we're looking at bluestone, pavers. We don't want asphalt. That, what have I got here? Brick, stone. There's also and we don't want it depends on, there's crushed stone as well. Do you have any of those that we'd eliminate the asphalt? Any of the others that you, in your opinion, you would eliminate?
Well, I kind of like stone dust kind of a thing. And if the walkway along the parking is going to be gravel or stone, they could all just be the same product, perhaps.
There is a
I think concrete's a little too industrial. Brick would look nice, but cost-wise, I don't know for them.
Well, the problem with brick, old brick or any kind of brick, is that in the ground, it doesn't have a tendency to, as you know from in the front of the Historical Society, it doesn't stay level. Many of the surfaces, it raises and lowers, and it's apt to be much more uneven. And when you're talking about even sometimes a quarter of an inch is enough to present a trip hazard.
Well, I'm not arguing for it. I'm just saying it would look nice.
Okay. It would look nice, but it might not be the best. Whereas
Yeah.
if you had brick pavers that interlocked together, then that would be more sustainable than say a herringbone pattern or some kind of set brick that's going to rise and lower, and with dry conditions, wet conditions, that would not meet ADA standards.
I would oppose asphalt, that's about the only thing I would totally oppose. And that doesn't hold up very well with frost heaving and bumping and cracking either. So I would think they would not want to do that, but it's about the only one of the choices I would heavily oppose.
Trying to see somewhere on the plans are the details. There it is. That's the construction entrance pad. What we need to look at is there are supposedly details for the driveway, but I think overall what we need to see, as you're saying, is we need to see a detail for what that driveway is going to look like. I mean, not the driveway as well as the parking area.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to the plan for just a minute. And I believe, and I should have asked and didn't see my note, but I believe that there's a paved apron that comes off the street and it goes up, but there's no detail of just how far it goes up into the driveway before. It looks like maybe about 20 feet before then the driveway turns into another type of surface.
Yeah, I think it has to be at least 10 feet, I think, is what the code is on that.
All right.
And it's typically asphalt.
Right. Tim, your thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, I wrote down some notes. I think the applicant has done a pretty good job of addressing most of the.
You're underwater again.
Tim, can you hold the phone right up to your mouth or something?
Can you hear me now?
That's a little better.
You need to shave.
All right. The applicant has addressed most of the concerns of the neighbors that they have brought up at the last 2 or 3 meetings.
That's not going to work.
No, but
Tim, Tim, I can't hear you at all.
Can I just call in?
That works perfectly. You can call in if you want. You can call in if you want to.
Yeah, let me call in.
All right.
All right.
Gail, this is Crystal speaking.
Yep. Yes.
I'm watching for Tim in the waiting room. I'm not seeing him yet. Wait, here he is. But if this doesn't work, another option would be he could type into the chat. But I am admitting him now, so
Great.
hopefully this works.
Okay.
Am I there?
You are there.
Okay. All right, I'm going to start off from the beginning. Yeah, I wrote several notes. You know, from the first plan till now, I think a number of changes have been made to accommodate a lot of the concerns of the people in the neighborhood and of the Historic District Commission itself. You know, parking has been reduced significantly and cited to reduce its visual impact. You know, there's still 15 places, but this is his place of business. I don't think that's out of line with the site itself or the business. The driveway has been reduced in size, and it's been cited not to need to take down the trees. It's been taken down from 24 to 20 feet. I'd like to see it go a little lower if possible. The well house has been retained. He's got rid of the dumpster, reduced the rain garden size. Access to Route 169 has been blocked. The part of the gravel drive will be reseeded. And I wrote that there's no significant impact, as far as I'm concerned, on the defining features of this property, namely the house and the barn. Yes, there is the ramp, which our site walk confirmed there's really no way around it. But the ramp itself will be respectful to the house. He's assured us there's going to be no lighting. He's assured us of plantings to reduce the visual impact. And I think the major thing from my point of view is this property will not only be protected, but preserved. The stewardship of this property, I think, has been going down the last few years, and I was worried, you know, the barn would fall in. And so I see some owners that are going to, you know, maintain it and I think bring it back to the way it should be. I do think asphalt is not a good choice for the walkway. I'm okay with crushed stone, brick, stone itself, natural stone, maybe bluestone. But I would not have like concrete pavers. But I think overall it's a good plan.
I think Tim is echoing pretty much my feelings that I stated earlier. So I think he and I are 99% in agreement. Tim didn't address the plantings by the ramp, I don't think specifically, but that's, I think, something we could agree on. So with these couple of small caveats, I'm pretty much in favor of the plan as revised.
I think that I concur with Tim that if we could reduce, even squeeze another couple of feet off that driveway, it would be an additional improvement. The applicants, they've gone out, you know, they've really worked hard to really take on board our recommendations and our concerns, and redesigning the ramp. I agree, as well as removing the dumpster completely, retaining the well house. Those are big compromises that were made and changes to the plans that are really going to help overall retain the character of the district. Adding the additional plantings, pushing the parking area back is very helpful. Ideally, I think I would agree with Stan that the 8 around the J, that those 8 parking spaces plus the 2 handicapped would be an ideal situation, with even eliminating those extra 5 that are on between the well house and trees on the eastern side. Those would be ideal. That would be ideal to eliminate those. However, there's no easy way for us to determine just how much traffic this location, how much business they will have, and what the need is. And what we don't want to do is create a situation that pushes traffic pushes parking out onto Child Hill Road.
Correct.
That's an important consideration as well. We can approve the components. We're going to have to change the application anyway because the original application, had the dumpster. It's now got a redesigned ramp. Several other things have changed. The well house is not being demolished. Several things have changed. So we're going to have to take each of those original pieces of the application and piece by piece change our ruling so that it reflects the changes that are made. We have the ability to approve each item individually with stipulations. So if there are further qualifications that we feel are necessary, we've all already agreed on the spindles, but that would if we were approving spindles, for example, we would say spindles stipulating or with conditional to them being exact replicas, except for height, of the existing court spindles. So we can add those criteria to each aspect of the application. And so we can add all kinds of stipulations. I think a concern for all of us has been the number of parking spaces and the quote unquote paved area, but the area designated for parking. And we are also able to set as a condition that parking spaces not exceed, so that we set a hard line there if we approved the parking. The other very, very important piece is that all of this, if it gets approved, is conditioned on planning and zoning approval, which is conditioned on among other things, on the fire marshal, but conditioned on approval by the planning and zoning. And and what is explicitly within that is that no work can take place until that planning and zoning approval. Because what we don't want to have happen is that if for some reason it is not approved by planning and zoning, that it's not good for them, for Jamie and Jason, if they've started to do work that is not going to be come to fruition, but it's also not good for the district. So that's part and parcel of if we do approve, that it is going to be contingent on, and we will say in the fine print that no work begins until that approval from planning and zoning comes.
Plus the building department, right?
Yes, building department has to approve. You're right. Building department has to approve the plans, and built into that is fire marshal as well. So, and unfortunately, this is one of those applications that has a whole lot of steps to it, which must be no end of frustrating for two people who want to get their business up and going. I can very much appreciate the frustration that they're feeling, but that in the long run, this is what's best for the district, for them, for the neighborhood. It's what we're working towards. So tonight, because this is a continuation, we need to make some kind of determination. We either need to, we can approve it, or we can reject the application, at which point we have to say what we need, and define the reasons why we're rejecting it. We've got to think about what we need to do regarding wanting more details. there's some pieces that we'd still like more details and specifics on, so we can approve some parts of it, and then perhaps, but we are going to need specifics on the materials that are ultimately chosen for the walkway, so we can't approve the walkway until we get that. And I think we want the details on what the front door is going to look like.
Right.
So we're going to need the details on that piece of it.
Could we improve the handrail contingent on the screening of year-round shrubbery or whatever? And the drive or the parking with a cap at the number of spaces there are now?
If that's what we decide to do, and contingent on planning and zoning approval and building official approval. Let me look at all the details of it.
Ask for one more study about taking another 2 feet off the driveway.
Well, we'd have to ask, we could approve with the condition, the driveway conditioned on it being 18 feet, not 20 feet. So we can set that. John Guskowski did say it wasn't his desired, what he felt was the optimal, but didn't say that we couldn't. So I think we can probably request that. We can approve the ramp as presented, and we can ask for, as presented at this hearing, with the details for the revised plan, with the revised plans as of 9/18/2020, and we can request then that there's a new application that comes before us with details for that front entranceway, details for the sidewalk, and final details of the parking.
Sounds good.
Okay, this one's going to take a while to format. I think that, let's see, let me write this down. I think the easiest thing would be to reject, let's see. We're going to list the things that were no longer part of the application, and that is the dumpster and pad, the dumpster, fence, and pad have been removed from the application, withdrawn. The demolition of the well housing has been withdrawn. All right, those are gone. So what we're acting on is the upgrading and expansion of a parking lot. The concrete apron. The pedestrian walkway. the accessibility ramp. As revised. Parking also as revised. The sign. The tree removal, and that is one tree to be removed. The regrading. And the landscape plantings. Those are the items. Landscape plantings, including the rain garden. And those are the items that are part of, I think I've got everything. Those are the items that are part of this application. Where's Tim? So Tim and Stan, is your feelings then that with stipulations on some of those, this is an acceptable application?
That's my feeling, yeah.
Tim?
I feel it is too, yes.
All right. So then, here we go again. So then what we'll need to do is, all right, stipulations for the parking lot. And I'll do driveway separately. As I'm hearing us discussing it, it would be approved with a stipulating that there be no more than, with a number of spaces not to exceed 2 handicapped spaces and 13 regular spaces as detailed in the 9/18/20 plans. Stipulation 2 would be that the applicant returns with, let's see, that the material is approved. That's, everybody's watching our very struggling work here. Of the logistics of how to do this and not do some of it.
Now, they did say it was going to be gravel, right?
Yeah, but I think we need to know just what it's going to look like. We were talking about 4-inch pieces or very small pea gravel. I think, let's see, we're in the public hearing and we're not supposed to be asking questions, but we really need, and I'm not sure we're on the plans, this is detailed. You two, are you in agreement that it's all right if we ask John a question, John Guskowski a question?
Sure.
John, can you provide a little bit of detail on the composition of the parking area?
Yes, Madam Chair, it's actually in the, if you want, I'll share my screen and I'll show you the detail.
Yeah, I was trying to find it on the plans, but without knowing exactly which page it is, it's like hunting for something in the dark.
Right here in the corner, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Gravel driveway and parking surface is 1 to 1/4 inch crushed stone or stone dust surface at the top, above a 3-inch traffic bound gravel surface, above an 8-inch compacted gravel subbase.
And while you're there, then, is that also the same composition for the driveway?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you, John.
Would that be suitable for the handicap ramp as well, or the handicap walkway as well?
My assumption is yes, but I'd like a confirmation from Pete.
The stone dust would be suitable for the handicap. The 1.25 crushed stone poses some problems.
Yeah, I think that would look nice. That'd be consistent too.
No, Stan, he just said, no, he couldn't use the 1.25 inch crushed stone on the walkway. He'd need stone dust would be needed, instead of just 1.25 inch stone. Is that correct, Pete?
Correct. The 1.25 stone has a tendency to move around a little bit. It causes some issues, but the stone dust would be acceptable.
Well, that's what I thought I was saying, that the stone dust would look nice for the walkway, I would think, if that's acceptable to you guys.
All right, thank you, Pete and John. All right, so then so that takes care of the detail of the parking lot. Then if we cap the number of parking spaces, making the comment that we would prefer fewer, and if that becomes an option, then we would prefer that, but that they are not to the parking spaces are not to exceed the number on this plan.
Right.
Okay. And the driveway, it would be stipulated that it be 18 feet wide. Would an extra 2 feet work, Tim? If we drop the driveway down to 18 feet, I don't think we can, they've got to be able to have 2 cars safely passing.
Yeah, that's enough.
Can you say that again, Tim?
I am not sure myself that that's enough. It seems like he said 18 feet.
Could you hear that, Gail?
Not really. Can you put it into the chat? If you're still on, Tim, can you put it into our chat?
I don't know. I can't get it.
Now you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now you're back.